Why?
You know, I'm so proud of our kids, the coaches, just everybody. They believed. They believed. And we came here and got it done.
Wasn't that a touching story for the Northern Illinois coach and Northern Illinois team coming in there getting paid $1.4 million to win in a close one against number 5 Notre Dame. Coach of Northern Illinois was a former player at Notre Dame, which is why he was even more emotional in that moment, and they deserved it. Notre Dame did not come prepared. Just like their coach said in his press conference, we got to go back to the drawing board, figure out what didn't work and why it didn't work in this situation. And I get it. Like, you have to win all of your games, or most of them, at least 11 of your games, for Notre Dame to make it to the playoffs, because they don't have a conference championship. They don't get that guaranteed in. And the committee's going to look at all your strength of schedules. And since Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, they have to win these games. And they're going to look back and go, Northern Illinois, this random group of 5 team who historically has been pretty pish-posh in the most recent years, and we can't even guarantee Northern Illinois is going to do good, because last time Notre Dame lost to a group of 5 team was Cincinnati, and the reason Notre Dame was able to maintain that 5 spot was because Cincinnati went on to go undefeated and was number 4. Like, it was definitely a moment. But moving on to what we're going to be doing in this video is talking about what is the future for some of these teams who lost, and then some honorable mentions near the end of a bunch of different teams that we're not going to go too in-depth on. Breakdown is Notre Dame and their next 10 games. And as we can look at here, we can't even say they're guaranteed wins anymore after that loss to Northern Illinois. We have Purdue. Purdue is a strong Big Ten team. They are an upset king, and they love upsetting teams that are ranked. They love upsetting teams that are especially ranked in the top 10. Not saying Notre Dame's going to be ranked in the top 10. I doubt they will. I think they're going to be pushed back to like 14, 15. But I think the Purdue game in Purdue is going to be a challenge, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to walk in there and win with ease. Next is Miami, Ohio. I think Northern Illinois' situation was a very rare situation, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to lose to Miami, Ohio. I think that Miami, Ohio is another one of those teams where they're going to be really running through the motions, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, especially after the Purdue game, because I think that Purdue game is going to be literally close. So in my next prediction video is going to be close. If you want to see those, please like and subscribe and follow for more content. Next, we have the Louisville. Louisville's a really good team. They were good last year. I know a lot of people are like, oh, their schedule sucks, but being ranked is still hard. Being top 25 is still hard. It still does not make you a bad team. And yeah, they might not have been Alabama level or Georgia level, but they're still a good program. And Notre Dame is not an Alabama or a Georgia or a Texas. They are fundamentally a middle of the road top 10 team. I like to compare them to like the Ole Misses, where you're really good, but you never win your conference championship. You're never really in there, but you're still a good team, like an Ole Miss, a Tennessee, an Iowa, or Wisconsin. Penn State kind of level team. Next we have is Stanford. Stanford is a good team. Long time ago, they're not very good now. I don't think Notre Dame's gonna have a problem with Stanford, so they need to handle business here. The Georgia Tech was ranked. They're not gonna be ranked now. They only were ranked because they beat Florida State, and Florida State's also on this list. We can talk about both of them right now. I think Florida State needs to get their stuff together. As of today, I think Notre Dame could easily beat Florida State, but down the line, we don't know. Florida State they have all the pieces for a good program, but doesn't mean they're going to be a good program. And that late in the season, I think they'll figure that out. So there's at least 1, 2, 3 games on the schedule where it's questionable: Florida State, Louisville, Purdue, and we haven't even got to the last 3 games. We have Virginia, Army, and Navy. Army and Navy is going to pose a challenge to Notre Dame because they're a different type of play style. They like that downhill run game. But if Notre Dame can get their defense together and really stop the run, I think they can easily win those games, no question. Virginia is not a good program in football. They're more a basketball school, so I think that's going to be an easy win there. And then we have the big one. Final game of the season, they have USC, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to win that one. I think USC is going to hand Notre Dame at least their second loss of the season, which they will put into question of what can Notre Dame do. First off, they need to win out. They need to win all their games. They need to beat Louisville. They need to beat Florida State. They need to beat Georgia Tech. They need to beat Purdue. They need to beat USC. But if they lose any one of those games, especially by a large margin, if they were to get to the final game against USC and they were 10-1, they lose this game, by a small margin. I think they can get like 11th, 10th, because if you look in previous past, there's been plenty of games where if you look at the top 12, 11 and 2 is usually that cutoff between like 12th and 13th. There's a few years in the last 5 years where there was only a couple of them, 2 teams that didn't make it to the top 12 if there was a 12-team playoff. But if they lose to USC by like 30, 40 points, maybe 20 high numbers, 20 plus points, I don't think the committee is going to view them as a very strong team to be put into that 11th spot, because the 12th spot is probably going to go to a group of 5 team, and they're going to be left out at 11 too, and they don't have a conference championship to like try to like bolster their resume like other teams, where like a team like Iowa could theoretically lose to Ohio State, be one loss in their conference, and get into the Big Ten title game, and then try to redeem that moment. Next, we're going to be talking about Michigan, Texas. We're going to be talking about the Michigan Wolverines here. They defending national title. They have new coach, new quarterback, new offense, new almost everything. And they come into this game. It was supposed to be a fairly close game. The spread at the time of me recording my picks and predictions, it was -6.5. And Texas came out full control. There was no doubt in Texas' mind they're going to win this game. And I remember watching noon and game day fairly close. They were talking about Michigan as if Texas scores first, Michigan is going to have a hard time coming back. And watching this game, it was very apparent. I view Michigan right now as like Iowa last year, where Michigan offense just can't move. They're just not moving the ball, and they need that defensive push, but Michigan's defense was struggling just as hard. They couldn't keep Texas from moving the ball. Texas could move the ball up and down the field, left, right, circle, and there was nothing really stopping them. Is this Michigan's year? I don't think so. If we pull up the schedule here, you could see they already lost Texas, of course. They have Arkansas State. That's gonna be an easy one. It's gonna rebound, get your bearings. Then they have USC. USC is a very good program. They have a better defense than they did last year. Their offense is just as strong, if not stronger. I know Caleb Williams is a big part of that, but their offense is still very strong. Then they have Minnesota. Minnesota is a team in the Big Ten similar to Purdue, where you just don't know what you're going to get with Minnesota, and there's not enough games right now to determine if Minnesota is actually going to pose a threat. But it is at home in the Big House, so I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to win this game. But Michigan still has to be on their toes for this. Same with the Washington game. They're going to be in Washington. This is Washington's first time playing Michigan as a Big Ten opponent. And I don't think Washington is as good as they were last year, but there's still a lot of football to be played, and I think it's going to be a very competitive game, especially since Michigan right now doesn't have a very strong offense, and they keep all their games really low scoring, and the margin for error is very small. So I think that's going to be another tough game. Illinois just came off of a big win against Kansas. Not saying that Kansas is a Michigan-level team, but Illinois is showing that they are better. They just beat a ranked opponent. So they're showing that they are better than they originally were thought of at the beginning of the year. Michigan State's a tough one. Rivalry games are always tough, especially since Michigan's not very good, not as good as they were last year. I think this is going to be a tight one. It's going to be in the Big House, and I think it's still going to be close. Oregon, a good opponent, strong opponent. The thing about Oregon, though, is that as we saw yesterday, they played against Boise State, one of the group of 5 teams, and they were back and forth in Oregon. They're going to be in Michigan, and I think that Oregon either has to find themselves by the time we reach that point, or it's going to be a rude awakening for Oregon trying to play against a team that is as downhill-ish football, still has some spread, but as tough as Michigan. But I still think that's going to be a hard game for Michigan to play. They got Indiana and Northwestern. Both, I would say, those are bottom-tiered Big Ten teams, and I don't expect them to be much of a challenge. Compare their gameplay to Michigan as the Fresno State, where Michigan and them are probably in it for the first half, and then second half, Michigan kind of just takes over. Then we got the Ohio State game. Ohio State hasn't played anybody to really show if they are deserving of the ranked 2 spot, but they are very strong. Watching them just run over teams is definitely a sight to see, and I think this could be Ohio State's year to beat Michigan after all these years of Michigan just winning, and I think Ohio State is favored to win the Big Ten. They usually are favored to win the Big Ten, but I don't think Michigan's going to win this. Can Michigan make it to the 12-team playoff is now the question. With this schedule, they have, first off, we can just go through the ranked teams. You have USC, Oregon, Ohio State. Those teams are not going to be easy. If Michigan loses to USC, they're pretty much out of contention unless they win out in the Big Ten, and then they have to hope their tiebreakers are really good. If they lose to 2 teams, they're completely out of the running because now they're definitely not getting the Big Ten championship game. If you, I think right now the Big Ten is so large that 2 losses won't get you there. In the Big Ten, you have to have only 1 loss in the Big Ten rankings. But if they only lose to Ohio State, then I would say that they have a big, strong argument to make it to the Big Ten title game, and then they can try to compete in that. But I don't think they're gonna. I think their chance to make it right now is so low, especially the way they've been playing. Like if they came into Texas, they lost by like a field goal, maybe a last-second touchdown, or just really close, 1-score game, and it was close the entire way, then I'd say, oh, Michigan is a good team, and I think their schedule is going to show that they can compete at the highest level. But with that performance yesterday, I don't think it's going to happen. We have some honorable mentions here. We're not going to go too deep into what happened, but we are going to mention them just because they are important. We have Oklahoma. They had a tough one against Houston, and they have a tough schedule ahead. I made a whole video about Oklahoma's schedule in one of my shorts, so check that out if you want to see it. Next, we have Penn State. Penn State was losing to Bowling Green, and then they came back to win it. But Penn State is one of those teams where like they're just so close to making it over the hump of making it to the Big Ten title game or even winning the Big Ten. But with that performance from Bowling Green, I don't think Penn State will even make the 12-team playoff because they have a hard road ahead. They have a lot of good opponents. Next, we have Oregon. Oregon's now in the Big Ten. They just barely beat Boise State. Like I was saying earlier in the video, Oregon has to find themselves, or they will start losing. They will start losing Big Ten games, and you can't afford to lose Big Ten games. You can't afford to lose any games now. You need to be X1, X2, and you need to have good wins, and your losses need to be good too. You can't afford to be losing to teams like you can't afford to lose a team like Boise State. They didn't lose to Boise State, but the committee will look at them and be like, what the heck happened? Next, we have Iowa. I put Iowa in because that's my team. And Iowa I saw a stat that like they were favored to make it to the 12 team. Not sure how they were going to get there, but they only had like one real hard opponent, and that's Ohio State. And they could not afford to lose to Iowa State, and they did. And so be it. I don't think Iowa has a path forward to the 12 team unless they win out. If they go 11-1, losing the Big Ten title game, they're 11-2. And then they have an argument to be made because they made it to the Big Ten title game. But they have to get to Ohio State, and I think Ohio State's very strong. Unless Iowa figures out their offensive situation, because it's very inconsistent right now. One moment they look really good. Next moment their offense is struggling. Next moment their offense is almost unable to move the ball. And it's just frustrating to see. Next we have Arizona. Arizona is one of the favorites to win the Big 12, in my opinion. But in that performance against an FBS school like Northern Arizona, it was too close for comfort. They should have blown them out. It should have been an easy win. But I will give benefit of the doubt where credit is due here. In-state teams such as Northern Arizona could be a challenge because there's only 3 real Division I football programs in Arizona: ASU, U of A, and NAU. So I could see that there was some like battle of the blood kind of thing within Arizona. But that's my benefit of the doubt. Next week we'll see how Arizona's doing, but I don't think that was a good performance by them. Alabama, I wouldn't raise the alarms because last year they had barely beat South Florida, and this year the score kind of deceives you. They were slugfest to the end, but I wouldn't say that Alabama is a shell or they're down the downhill turn. They have it just happens sometimes, week 2s, week 1s, where random teams, maybe South Florida is like their kryptonite, but like once you get to the fourth quarter, it's kind of like their kryptonite wears off. But these are all my honorable mentions. And there was a couple other teams that I saw, like K-State versus Tulane, but I didn't put them on the list because Tulane's one of the best group of 5 teams in the league. So I wouldn't expect K-State as a middle-tier team to be blowing out the group of 5 Tulane. And that's going to be it for this video. Please, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe down below. And that's going to be it. Peace.